I love that sound.
I'm Michael Heidinger for Radio St. Rose, and today I'll be speaking with local musician Joe Karandy about his music and his art.
The day will come when all will be gone and the standard issue falls away. I will be walking in the Saturday sunshine as they fall around me laughing now and how I could be waiting, but you've already gone to meet me in the market square. She could be waiting, shaking trees from her hair like movie stars.
So let's start at the beginning. When did you first get interested in music?
Well, I would say at a really young age. My first recollection of actually hearing music was probably Elton John. I think my mother had the Goodbye Yellow Brick Road record, and I think that had Benny and the Jets on it and a couple of his other hits. So that's my first actual recollection of actually hearing music. It was about 74. Yeah, I was a little kid then.
So it was a pop music rather than a classic rock or hard music experience.
Well, it was, my mother had a pretty good mix. I mean, she would have Crosby, Stills, and Nash records too. So, I kind of got exposed to both. And I think at that time, Crosby, Stills, and Nash, their popularity wasn't maybe what Elton John's was. But, so I had a pretty good cross-pollination, I think, when I was growing up.
And of course, the 80s were a big part of our lives back because we were in high school during the 80s, so the 80s rock was definitely part of that.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Definitely, and I think that's when I became stylistically more aware of just different. The 80s were such a great time for music because there was so much going on. There was metal, there was glam metal, and actually pop music back in the 80s was really good as well. So, some of the Peter Gabriel stuff, I always really enjoyed some of his earlier stuff and his later stuff as well. And then, you had like the metal bands, and I was really, and still am, big into like heavy metal music. So Iron Maiden and, Slayer, Metallica, all that kind of stuff I really thrived on, because it kind of spoke to my teenage angst, I think, a little bit.
Yeah, it was I enjoyed it back then too. But then right after the 80s, when we went into the 90s, we had an abrupt shift in the music scene with the emergence of grunge and Nirvana and Pearl Jam. And we kind of lost touch after high school for that decade. What was your musical experience like during the 90s?
Yeah, there really was a great shift, and it was almost a role reversal. I still always thrived on really heavy music, at that time, as well as, whatever else someone would throw my way. The whole grunge movement, it was cool. I mean, I wasn't really, because some of those bands I had been listening to by the end of my high school career, some of like the first Nirvana record and maybe even the first Soundgarden record. And I don't really even consider Soundgarden like a grunge band per se. To me, they were always heavy rock. But I think we saw that shift and everything just became so popular, and Nirvana just kind of really exploded. And along with that came, the music industry's push to kind of get bands to wear, plaid shirts and cut off sleeves. And so really what I did during the 90s is I went in a totally different direction. And that's when I got into like some really ambient electronic music, and I started picking up bands like Skinny Puppy and Kraftwerk and stuff like that, stuff that had always been around for a long time. But the 90s for me was I played in an electronic band in the 90s. I kind of went the other way of what everybody else was doing, and I guess that's really how I've always been as a person. If someone wants to go this way, I'm going the opposite way just because that's my personality,
Yep, gotcha. And were you playing bass during this time?
I was playing bass. I was playing a little guitar, and I was singing. Mainly, I was singing,
Gotcha.
but I was pretty involved in the lyrical implementation into the songs, as well as how the music was orchestrated and stuff like that.
So you were playing bass back in high school when we were there together, and if in the '90s you were mostly singing, when did you get back to playing bass again?
I just it's just one of those things. I just kind of said, geez, I really miss just playing bass and strumming my bass, and kind of formulated. I tried out different things and different. I done some acoustic stuff by myself, and which I still do today, and I just kind of pick up whatever at that point in time. There just was kind of need with the group of people I was around to have a bass player, so I was like, well, I played bass in high school, I'll just pick it up again, and kind of went off from there.
Let's see. We moved now to the 2000s.
2000s.
Yeah, which was another. Well, it was kind of a shift. You had more of an alternative, not necessarily grunge, but you had like the independent alternative music scene. When did Sunset Aside begin? Was that part of the 2000s?
Yeah, that would have been about 2005, and that band actually formulated out of an acoustic band called Steady Goat. We wanted to really just kind of counteract again, I guess, what was going on musically, because rock really had, in the truest sense of the form, had really kind of has fallen by the wayside, I think, in the last 20 years. So we started with this acoustic concept that was Steady Goat, and then that evolved into Sunset Aside, and we decided, geez, let's just plug in our instruments and turn them up real loud and see what happens. So, that's pretty much what we did, and the songwriting process, kind of went on from there. And, we just kind of headed off and wrote a lot of music and recorded a lot of music, so it was all good.
You had there's a second album, I believe, which is Of What Remains.
Yep.
And that has a decidedly different tone to it. It's very atmospheric, a lot of sound effects and mellow keyboards mixed in with the heavy guitars.
Yeah.
And the earlier CD seems to be much more straight ahead rock.
Yes. Yeah, I think we were coming, in between those two records. The first record was definitely, more straight ahead rock. And, I think around that time, we kind of harkened back to some of our influences. And a lot of those influences would have been like some David Bowie records. I think there's a lot of Pink Floyd undertones on that record, because we all kind of rediscovered the magic of Pink Floyd. So we took those influences and stuff that we'd grown up with, and decided we were going to create, an atmospheric, soundscape / story, and that's really what that record is about.
Lipstick traces some terminal artifacts, and it comes as no surprise. I'm lying on my bed, staring into the sun. La 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 la. Do do do. La 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 la. Do do do. She said stop. Stop. Take a look around. In a whisper, can you hear? Autumn's eyes, they never look that way. But didn't it make you feel alright?
Great to be a part of that recording process and that creative process, because the engineer at the time, I don't even know if he's still around anymore, but he had this wonderful studio that was almost in a burned out building. So you'd have a recording studio much like what we're in now, and then you'd walk out of the room and there was this 100-year-old piano, and so we'd go in and bang on that, and he'd run a mic out there, and we'd sample some stuff. Yeah, that was really fun to be a part of that, but that was more, overall being that atmospheric and being that soundscapey type music. There's a lot more mechanics involved. So there's a lot more of, sitting in front of a computer screen and cutting and pasting what you like and putting everything where you want it to get it to come out. Ultimately the idea for that record was to have it be like a movie play in your head almost. We all pretty much agreed on that when we started recording, that we want to do an album that when you listen to it, you're going to visualize whatever movie or whatever's going on in your life is going to be playing and maybe playing back to you. So that was really the impetus for that overall.
That album, actually, in the notes inside the CD, it's dedicated to Kurt Vonnegut. Could you explain?
Welcome to the Monkey House. Yeah, I mean, along with being a performing artist throughout the years, as well as a visual artist, I mean, literary arts really kind of influenced, a lot of what I read, or a lot of what my counterparts read. really influenced, how we made music and our perspective on things. So we definitely felt that it was necessary to give credence to someone that was a pretty amazing literary figure for our generation and for earlier generations. So, that's where that shout out came from.
Nice. And you had the one song Movie Stars, which I remember hearing on WEQX's regional music show, EQX-Posure. Did you have any other success with that album?
Yeah, we actually were able to parlay that record into playing some really good shows. And we had a great time, and local radio definitely helped push us. We made a little money, not a lot, but we made a little, and whatever money we made went back into the band, or we might walk away from a show each with $100 in our pocket. So it was good, and we had a lot of support at that time for what we were doing, because people were kind of grooving on it. So it was all good.
I love that sound.
We probably didn't push it as much on the internet as we could have. I know you can still look it up, and you can still buy the CD on CD Baby and Yahoo Music, and download all that stuff. It's still out there. It's still available. And there's also some gems hidden in the vault. I have a pretty extensive collection of some of our live performances, which are really something special in and of themselves. So who knows what the future holds. I mean, there's been talk about, maybe doing something again, but it's all fun, and we love it all, and we love the process. The whole process of creating is just a magical and beautiful thing. So we all pretty much embrace that.
Speaking of the internet, I Googled Sunset Aside just to see what would come up, and you guys actually have a band page on MTV.com. Were you aware of that?
Yeah, I was aware of that, and someone was farting around, and I think probably Will or John probably got on that. It's one of those things that we just kind of got up there and just never really pushed it. You know what I mean? So, I mean, who knows? Maybe we'll be pushing it more soon. Well,
that's the way it is with a lot of bands. Things get going and then they fall apart.
Right.
Personnel changes,
sure,
or whatever other issues come up. Like most musicians, you have a day job.
Yes.
And I remember one time you were telling me about this story. You ended up stuck up high above the city of Albany.
Oh, yeah. That's great. The skyline of Albany, by the way, is beautiful. So, yeah, I mean, obviously I'm not able to, make a living at doing music full time. So my day job is, I'm a construction worker. And we were doing this job in downtown Albany, and at the top of the building, there's like these louvers, and it's actually where, air is vented out. So I was on a double-decker swinging scaffolding is what they call it. And you lower yourself down mechanically. Well, on my side, my wheel, there's wheels that go against the building so you're not bumping into the building. My wheel got caught in that louver, And the guy on the other side didn't realize it, so he keeps going down, and I'm still stationary. So eventually we're at an angle, and I'm watching my tools start to fall off the side of the scaffolding, and I'm looking, and they're hitting stuff below. So I'm yelling and screaming at the guy. I'm like, bro, you gotta stop, because we're gonna, this is gonna turn out bad. So what I had to do was I actually had to pry my wheel out of the louver, and when I did that, I dropped, the whole scaffolding dropped on my side about 5 feet, and then it began to kind of swing like a pendulum. So yeah, that was pretty scary.
So have you taken any more jobs involving heights since then?
Yeah, actually I have. I don't mind heights too much. The bottom line is you just got to be careful and, and just be safe.
Yep. Let's see, besides music and your day job, I also remember I think it was the late 90s, I saw you in one of the local newspapers. Believe it might have been the Times Union. You were painting on Lark Street.
Yes.
So you were also a visual artist.
Yeah, I enjoy oil painting a lot. I probably a lot of that influence, again, would come from my mother, and I grew up in a household that was pretty, she was pretty diverse and pretty right on with arts and stuff like that. So at a young age, I was exposed to art. And, we used to go over to the Clark Institute all the time and, take day trips there and stuff like that. And I embraced that stuff 100%. So I really enjoyed painting. I still paint to this day. And, I've actually been able to make a little money off it, too. I've been able to sell some of my paintings. In fact, a guy up your way bought, a guy who lives in the Stockade bought one of my paintings. So that was, it's cool. Hey, it's as long as you're doing something creative, I'm all for it.
And how do artists actually sell their paintings? Is it word of mouth, or are there art shows? Or
yeah, I'm not really too steeped into the art scene. I kind of pop my hat out every once in a while and go, yeah, I don't want to be a part of this. But every once in a while, I did a showing at a couple of local places. Really that stuff is, again, it's one of those things you can push on the internet. You can do word of mouth kind of stuff. So it's definitely, I'm the kind of person that, I'll get a creative idea and I'll be 100% full bore into it, and I'll step back and look at it and go, okay, I'm done. You know what I mean? And this is it. And it is what it is. And if 9 times out of 10, I really don't choose to push stuff like that, because I'm really just creating for myself. I'm not really creating for anybody else. So I just happened to be creating on Lark Street this one year, and people were actually surprisingly really flabbergasted that I was actually doing my craft amidst a crowd of people, and actually got a good write-up in the Times Union about it. And that was I was all for it. That was good. It was cool.
what do you see in the future for yourself in terms of music? Where are you headed?
As far as music, there's always talk, there's always chatter, there's always, I'm getting to the point now where, I put music down for a little while for the last few years. I kind of put it down. So I think I'm feeling a need to create again. So I think I'm on the cusp of getting a group of people back together again. And it kind of seems to be headed that way. I've been talking to Will from Sunset Aside, and that may or may not be under the Sunset Aside moniker. It may be under something else. It may be, it may be something. Right now I'm kind of on this real heavy and really low end kind of kick. So I'm thinking that I'm going to harken back to some noise stuff, some very percussive stuff. Because I work in an industry where I'm constantly hearing banging or tapping, and in a strange kind of way that, I'll hear guys banging on steel, or I'll hear guys, I'm going, wow, that's a really cool, and here these guys are working, and the whole time they're doing that, I'm going, wow, I could use that sound, or I could use that. So, I think it's headed that way. I'm still very much into acoustic stuff. So there's always the prospect of doing something acoustic too. And for a long time now, I actually, one goal I've had is to, I'd really like to get like a jazz band together, like a piano player, a stand-up bass player, and a drummer. And I'd kind of maybe like to do some poetry over the top of that. Maybe kind of in the veins of Tom Waits or something like that. I've always wanted to do that, and I've always wanted to, kind of present what I write in that form, with some great jazz music behind. So, so there's 3 different directions I can head. So we'll see. We'll definitely see.
So you're a truly independent musician then. You're striking out on your own and not worrying about commercial concerns at all.
Right. Yeah, I mean, commercialism in music. I mean, look what our industry has become. It's become, something that I don't ever remember growing up with, and it's just changed so much. I mean, that's not to say that there isn't some good stuff out there. I mean, there really is some very talented, maybe pop or independent artists out there that I kind of like and enjoy. But it's just, it's all watered down to me for the most part.
Well, that seems to be where most of the record industry money goes, is into the polished pop acts.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I would definitely I agree with that 100%, because that's how people are making their money. That's how those people are making the money. I mean, back in the day, when we were sending out stuff to independent record labels and stuff like that, it was all about, you had to get your little package together and mail it out with a nice cover letter, and they wanted to see the interviews in the local papers. And dude, that stuff is so far from not even existing anymore. It's kind of funny, and acts like Justin Bieber or whatever, get discovered on YouTube. So maybe I'll do something on YouTube and push it that way, and then maybe I'll have you do some video stuff for me, and we'll put something out on YouTube. And I mean, and that's always what it's been about for me. Is just, if I take the standpoint of I'm going to do this for myself, and not have any preconceived notions about where I want it to go or how I want it to come out, it always works out so much better for me as a creator of music or fine art or whatever. I don't attach anything to what I'm doing. It comes out of me, and I'm able to look at it, hear it, ingest it, and ingest it back in and throw it back out. And my kids think I'm kind of weird, but that's okay. You know what I mean? I'm good with where I'm at as far as not having to please anybody. And I could only imagine what the stress is. I mean, could you imagine what the stress for a kid like Justin Bieber is okay, well, last album you sold 8 million copies. Now we want you to do 16, and we've brought in this guy and that guy to help you write songs. And I mean, God, that's pressure like I don't know what pressure is. I mean, I can't imagine having to answer to, record executives about how and why you're selling and what markets you're selling in, and we need to push you in a secondary market over here because we think, you know what I mean? I mean, yes. There's a whole logistical thing that even before the music is created, people are already talking about the logistics of, okay, well, we got to push Tokyo this year, and we got to push Europe, and we got to push New York and LA, and if you're good there, you're good everywhere. So I mean, I can't imagine that kind of pressure, and in a lot of ways I feel bad for because that's got to be a tough way to make a living that way, and I think you see a lot of the cracks in individuals after a short period of time, short being within a 5-year span, why you see people kind of fall off the map. And I can't blame them. I suppose I'd fall off the map too. So, as a consumer of music, do you still buy CDs, or have you moved completely digital into the MP3 era? I still buy CDs. I do have an iPod. I do have, I'm not totally disconnected from from how people are doing things these days. Although I haven't imported all my songs onto my iPhone yet, but yeah, I mean, I'm kind of a 50-50 guy because I still like the idea of going to the store and buying something in a package and looking and opening it up and going, ooh, what's this song? Or, ooh. You know what I mean?
Yep, exactly.
I mean, that we need to bring that kind of feeling back to consumers because it's such an awesome feeling. And I remember that feeling as a kid, like opening up my Iron Maiden Live After Death record. You know what I mean? I was like, wow, look at this, woo, and open it up, and you're like, whoa, what's that? And what's that? And,
yeah, you had artwork and liner notes.
Yeah, which really, to me, that meant a lot because I really felt like in those liner notes I could connect with the people that they were thanking or you know,
with the story of the record.
And with the story of the record and how it was made and where they played and you know, those are some great things that we're lacking, I think, these days.
Well, thank you, Joe, for coming in and talking to us today.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you.